200 years ago this March, a young French nobleman paid a visit to Charleston as part of a celebrated tour of the United States. Here to share more on who the Marquis de Lafayette was and the impact he had on our nation is Joseph Volpi, chair of the South Carolina Committee for the Lafayette Bicentennial Tour. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Who was the Marquis?
The Marquis was the youngest Major General in the Continental Army. He was born into a family of soldiers in the nobility. At that point, the estate's general had three castes: the nobility, the religious, and the bourgeoisie. Lafayette was part of the nobility of the sword. And when his father was killed in the Battle of Minden, when he was 2 years old, he became a Marquis. He was also a baron and a seigneur of two different. He's one of the wealthiest men in France. He was from the Auvergne section of France, which is about 300 miles south of Paris. And though he was of the nobility and very wealthy, when he got to Paris, he was considered a country bumpkin. So he was laughed at. He tripped over his own feet, similar to myself. And Marie Antoinette actually laughed at him when they were dancing, which changed much later. It changed when he became a hero in both France and the United States.
And I want to ask you, so let's make the connection between France and the United States. He had paid more than one visit to the United States, which back in those days was not an easy feat to accomplish, but he did later in his years, and this is the bicentennial that we're celebrating. He came back and he took a tour of all 24 states.
That's right.
And why was that so significant?
It was a reconnection of his youth. It went beyond mere nostalgia. It went into enforce the Franco-American relationship. Both countries were going through a little bit of turmoil at that time. And the tour strengthened the patriotic roots on both countries, on both sides. When Lafayette came over to this country for the, let's see, first, second, third, fourth time. He came 4 times. He came over first time 1777 when he landed in South Carolina. And he went back to France in 1779, came back a year later, went back to the United States in 1784 to visit with his adopted father, George Washington, and then was asked to come back in 1824 by President Monroe to be the guest of the nation.
Yes.
And that tour was only supposed to be for 4 months. And it became such a...
Almost a year, wasn't it?
It was 13 months.
Goodness.
And it went through 24 states and 6,000 miles.
Wow. And when you think about it, he didn't get there by plane. He didn't get there by car.
No.
Or even train. I mean, it was all through horse and carriage as he made his way down to Florida, Alabama, all over the place.
Yeah.
So his history is quite significant to us here in South Carolina. And I want to get to some of the celebrations that are going to be taking place. You have a few things going on. But what I think is also very interesting is that he had also named his own son George Washington. So an ode to his adoptive father is quite remarkable as well. And his experiences that he took from the United States that he tried to implement, composing a very similar doctrine to the Declaration of Independence in France, right? And this is someone who lived through the French Revolution and rich history.
In 1787, King Louis XVI promulgated the Edict of Tolerance. And Lafayette went one step further in 1789 with the help of Thomas Jefferson, who was our minister plenipotentiary to France from the United States. He composed a Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. And it was based upon the principles in our Declaration of Independence: liberty, fraternity, equality. That all came from that. And for a very short period of time, Lafayette was, during 1789 until the Reign of Terror began, he was in a position of much prominence in France.
Yeah. And if you could, we only have a few seconds left, if you could just tell us about the South Carolina Committee for the Lafayette. So this is part of another committee as well. Maybe you can tell our audience a little bit more about sort of this club that you're a member of.
Oh, the American Friends of Lafayette consists of 1,500 people in the United States and France. And we're dedicated to the study and education of passing the education over to the regular people. We promulgate his ideas, we spread his thoughts, and both in France and in the United States. Every year they have a ceremony at Lafayette's grave in Piqua Cemetery where they change the American flag. It flies over his grave 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Just one small thing, it never came down even when the Nazis occupied France during the Second World War.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating history. Thank you for being a steward of this history. I think it's important for all of us to know. We're going to put up on our screen several dates that are going to be coming up, and you do have one very special one on Friday, March 14th, and also a walking experience as well. So this is a way for everyone to really immerse themselves and get to know a tangible piece of our history. Thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. We're back after this.